Looking at the general reaction to the 7800 XT announcement, one is left wondering if the PC enthusiast community has become so conditioned that reason has been completely abandoned. Everyone is celebrating the lower than expected $500 price tag, but few seem to realize what this GPU launch actually represents. As it turns out, we might have hit a point of no return when it comes to the death of the GPU market as we know it.
This video is sponsored by Urcdkeys.com. If you buy a retail Windows 10 key, you could spend $100 or more, but if you buy an OEM key from Urcdkeys.com, a Windows 10 Pro key will cost you only $15 when you use the coupon code C25. The keys work globally, and you can even get a free upgrade to Windows 11 from Microsoft. After you've made your purchase, you will find your key in your purchased orders in the Urcdkeys website. Click on Get Keys and copy the key. Then in Windows, click on Start and type Activate, and then click Activation Settings. Then click Change Product Key, paste your key you just purchased, and click Next. Your copy of Windows is now activated. If you want Office 2021 Professional, you can use the same C25 discount code and get it for just $65. Urcdkeys is running a mid-year sale with some cool mechanical keyboards, gaming mice, and even gaming chairs. A big thanks to Urcdkeys.com for sponsoring today's video. Check the links in the description to get your cheap OEM Windows keys today.
I did a video last month talking about how I felt the 7800 XT at $550 would be well positioned in the current market, especially if you were planning on buying Starfield, as that would be $100 less than the 4070, so just about worth it in my opinion. But I also stated in that video that the 6800 XT at $520 would be a better buy. Well, it turns out the 7800 XT is even cheaper than expected at $500, which, assuming the performance does indeed match the 4070, represents a massive saving of $100 and potentially $160 if you were planning to buy Starfield, since a code for the game comes included with the 7800 XT. So what's there to complain about? Well, AMD is copying Nvidia not just in the good things Nvidia are doing, like the extra features, FSR3 in particular being a late but still welcome addition to the Radeon software add-ons, but AMD are also copying Nvidia in the anti-consumer behavior. The 7800 XT was meant to be a 7800 non-XT, and that's why it's only $500, and that's why it performs about the same as the 6800 XT. If we look at the specs, we see that the 6800 XT had 72 compute units, 128 ROPs, and drew 300 watts on 7nm TSMC. The 6800 non-XT had 60 compute units, 96 ROPs, and drew 250 watts, also on 7nm TSMC. This new RDNA 3-based 7800 XT also has 60 compute units, not 72 like the 6800 XT, and 96 ROPs, not 128, and a TDP of 263 watts on 5nm TSMC. That's not an XT SKU, that's clearly a 7800 non-XT on a new node, mind you, drawing more power, and it barely beats the 6800 XT. Nvidia tried to do the same thing with the 4080, if you remember, the 12GB one, which due to community pressure, Nvidia ended up renaming it to a 4070 Ti. But as far as the 7800 XT is concerned, it's coming in at $80 less than the 6800 non-XT at launch, but that card launched in 2020, 3 years ago. After 3 years, you save $80, yeah, but you get a worse GPU overall, even if it can push a few more frames in a few games. Like I said in the video where I covered this last month, it's a sad state of affairs that the community has been conditioned to think this is now considered good. I mean, it is good in the current context, but I think gamers should be demanding more from both AMD and Nvidia, and Intel for that matter. In the case of this GPU, I think the price is right, although the naming scheme scheme is definitely deceiving, but the performance is way lower than it should be. If we see this as a 7800 non-XT, which is what it effectively is, then $500 is the correct pricing for it, but the performance should be way up there in the 4070 Ti range, or at least in the 6950 XT range. I mean, that's what we've had for the last few generations. Mid-range cards that cost the same or less than the ones they are replacing, but perform on the level of last gen's flagship. As things stand, we're getting way less for what we pay, and this GPU launch represents the end of good value in the mid-range. We will no longer get last gen's flagship for mid-range prices. I know this will fall on deaf ears, but the solution to this madness is to buy second-hand. Gamers need to get over the fear of getting GPUs off of eBay, otherwise you are just validating Nvidia's strategy. This is Nvidia's strategy. AMD does it because AMD lives in Nvidia's shadow. What Nvidia does, AMD copies. Nvidia introduced ray tracing. A couple of years later, AMD had ray tracing. Nvidia introduced DLSS. A couple of years later, AMD had FSR. And Nvidia introduced frame generation, and here we are. A year later, AMD is introducing their own version of frame generation. Nvidia increases prices, AMD increases prices. Nvidia tries to deceive customers by giving a lower tier card the naming scheme of a tier above, and AMD follows suit. AMD doesn't seem to be interested in innovating. They are just happy copying whatever Nvidia does. That and making chips for the consoles. That's AMD's GPU strategy in a nutshell. On eBay right now, you can find 6900 XTs for $470. That's a far superior graphics card than the 7800 XT and the 4070. It's up there with the 7900 XT really, for $470. And eBay will refund you if there's an issue with the GPU, no questions asked. The only way to stop Nvidia and AMD's effective price fixing is to punish them by letting GPUs rot in shelves. Save your money by getting a GPU in the used market and put the savings towards an OLED monitor. And if you want Starfield on top of that, just get the Xbox Game Pass, as the game is included, and you'll get access to more games than you can play. As for the 7700 XT, it's unbuyable. It's just predatory segmentation to get people to spend the extra $50. Just stay away from that GPU. So while the 7800 XT is a good buy in the current context, if you're only considering buying new, it's a good representation of how bad the GPU market has become, and it marks the end of the mid-range value proposition. And while it used to be the case that AMD kept Nvidia honest, now we're at a point where AMD really doesn't care, because AMD fans will buy AMD GPUs no matter what. Maybe there are still enough savvy PC enthusiasts out there that will spread the word and at least make a dent in Nvidia and AMD's price-fixing strategy. One can hope.